Hey guys, it's Dr. J here. Just wanted to reach out. We're going to do a phenomenal video today on hydrochloric acid and stomach ulcers. Should you take stomach acid when you have stomach ulcers? So first off, if you have an active ulcer where you know there's an ulcer present, you're seeing blood, you're coughing up blood, you have blood in the stool, it's always a good idea to pull back on anything that's acidic or could potentially irritate things. That's number one. Number two, we need acid to help with digestion. And so the question is the low acid potentially causing poor digestion, which is then leading to gut irritation? Because food's not being digested properly, ferment, they acidify, they putrefy, they create more organic acids of their own, and those acids could potentially irritate the gut. So sometimes, I would say a lot of times, we actually find adding acid, whether it's initially from apple cider vinegar or lemon juice, can actually help improve digestion and decrease a lot of gut irritation because we're better digesting our food. Therefore, the food's not fermenting and rotting and putrefying, etc. So sometimes that really matters. It can make a big difference. And then number three, if we're in doubt, guess what? We just work on chewing our food really well, maybe pre-digesting our food, avoiding raw foods, and taking more enzymes. So think of your teeth. That's mastication. That's the first level of digestion, right? Chew it up to a really solid oatmeal-like consistency. Think of cooking as pre-digesting. Heat is going to help break down protein and make it more bioavailable. Steaming or sauteing or cooking your vegetables will make it more bioavailable, reduce anti-nutrients, and decrease the fiber so you can absorb it better, right? You look at the nutrient level in raw broccoli versus steamed broccoli, it goes up. Why? Because you are decreasing fibers and anti-nutrients and you're making it more bioavailable. So look at cooking and look at chewing as a way to make your food more bioavailable, easy to digest. Number four, do not hydrate with food. Hydration with food, your water has a pH of around 7, which is more on the neutral side. Your stomach's like a 1.5 or a 2 on the pH. So when you add more 7 into a low pH acidic environment, it raises the pH. It makes them more alkaline. And a lot of the enzymes in your stomach are going to be pH sensitive. So the pepsinogen that gets converted to pepsin, that's a proteolytic enzyme, that requires a nice acidic pH. Hydrochloric acid itself, it basically sterilizes the gut and makes it hard for bacteria to grow and keeps critters from living hospitably. So the acid is very, very important. And then number three is the water shifts that pH and it dilutes the enzymes. So it makes the enzymes that are there less potent. So if you're going to take a couple of ounces of water with food to swallow some pills or something, or you're sipping on like a glass of wine or something, not a big deal. We just want to make sure that you're not hydrating with a meal. You shouldn't be trying to drink cups of water and trying to hydrate. If you want to hydrate, drink before a meal, 10, 15 minutes or so before, or an hour or two, closer to 2 hours after if you have poor digestion and if you have delayed gastric emptying, okay? If not, drink your water beforehand, get your water in beforehand, cut maybe a couple ounces during the meal to get in your enzymes and acids to help improve your digestion. And then on top of that, what else can you do? We can also do things like bitters. Bitters are very helpful. Things like ginger or gentian or anise or lemon peel or orange peel, right? These bitters, they naturally stimulate our digestive juices. So if we have more acidity going on, like meaning our stomach's kind of raw and we have more gastric irritation, then we can always lean on bitters as well to kind of just gently nudge our digestive juices into effect. And then we can lean more on enzymes. So first step is, if we have one of those four issues happen, just lean more on enzymes. If you don't have any active ulcerations or blood coming out of your rear end or coughing it up, then you can just lean on enzymes and then maybe add a tiny bit of apple cider vinegar or lemon juice. And if that doesn't cause a problem, then you can continue to go up and add bitters in and then even acid in like HCl. Again, it's always good to get, a good thumbs up from your conventional medical doctor to make sure there's nothing going on regarding an ulceration. And as you add things up, if you don't see symptoms increase, more than likely you're stable and you're good to go. But if you have an active ulcer, it's always better to working on more enzymes and more healing and soothing. And if you're in this ballpark, you really want to see a good trained functional medicine doctor so that you can work out all the things and set a good foundation, because foods and good digestion really helps set the table. Now, there could be other underlying infections like H. pylori that could be weakening the gut barrier, causing atrophic gastritis. That's where that gut lining, atrophic means it atrophies, it gets thinner, it gets weaker, and that gut barrier, the weaker it is, we don't have good goblet cell production of mucus. Therefore, that lining is really susceptible for more irritation. It's like you needing a really good massage, but you got a sunburn yesterday, right? That gut lining is really weak, so it can't handle a lot of food, a lot of acidity. So you really have to look at cooking your food better, maybe eating smaller meals, chewing your food up, avoiding a lot of hydration, and leaning more on enzymes as a good first step. And look deeper at H. pylori, look deeper at potential SIBO or bacterial overgrowth. There could be other underlying parasitic infections too that could be causing a roll. They could be downstream, but are still, let's say, stimulating the sympathetic nervous system to make less acid and less enzymes. And let's not forget, the more adrenal stress we have, the more our fight or flight part of our nervous system is activated. That decreases digestive juices. Why? Because from an evolutionary perspective, your body, your mother nature, is not worried about digesting food when you're running from a tiger or a lion. It wants to get out of there. So it's allocating blood flow towards the arms and the legs and the feet to run and flee, and it's going away from the core and the digestive organs. So that's a really important component. Your hormones could set you up so you have poor digestion. And if that's chronic because you're always stressed because of food, because of work, because of travel, family, or whatever, that's going to keep you in that fight or flight state and make it harder for you to break down your food. And over time, you can get an infection, and that makes it harder to heal over time. And again, if you want to dive in deeper with myself or my colleagues, click down below. We'll put a link where you can reach out to me. And if you enjoyed the content, put down your experiences. Let me know what you're dealing with. And if you want help, we'll talk about next steps. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. I'll move over to some of the questions if there's any in the chat. Okay, if the diet is stalled, would you suggest celery juice or something like colostrum to help with the very nagging digestive cough? Yeah, celery juice is great. I love it because it has some nice acids in there which could really help with digestion, and it has a lot of potassium, which is really good. A lot of people don't get enough potassium. You need 45 to 4,700 milligrams a day of potassium, and it's very hard to do that. You get about 500 to 700 milligrams per serving of vegetable, so you need about 6 servings of vegetable, maybe 1 full avocado, maybe a little bit of starch or some fish. It's hard to do. I mean, if you go to Cronometer, justinhealth.com/chronometer, CRONO meter, METER, just put a sample day in there and see how much potassium you get. It's hard to get enough. What could be the cause of red moles? Those are called cherry hemangiomas. A lot of times that's estrogen dominance. It may be a difficult time metabolizing estrogen. So you got to look at your metabolism, and of course, more sulfur, maybe some DIM, maybe some good fiber to help with estrogen detoxification. Nora. I'm currently using HCl and seem to be working great. My question is, when should I potentially discontinue? Is it dangerous to keep taking it long term? Thanks for the great info. You're totally welcome. It's not dangerous. Gastrin is the part of the feedback loop that stimulates. It's part of the feedback loop that HCl stimulates, and HCl does not disrupt that feedback loop. It's not like testosterone in your testicles where they shrink. That feedback loop does not get disrupted with HCl, so you should be okay. I mean, I always tell patients once their digestion gets better, use HCl and enzymes as needed when you're eating on the go, when you're eating a bigger meal, holiday celebrations, going out to eat, and just try to make your meals that are really good and stable and healthy, and you're eating when you're pretty stress-free. Try to consume those without HCl and enzymes and see how you do. But I consider HCl and enzymes the low-hanging fruit because anytime you can access more nutrition from the expensive, good, healthy, organic food you eat, that's a really good investment because you can get access to more of that nutrition. Also taking glutathione, but recently heard about being linked to cancer according to some research. What's your take on this? All the research I've seen on glutathione, it's actually the opposite. It actually helps with cancer because it's a very powerful antioxidant. Feel free, send me that study. I'd like to look at it, but dozens of studies on glutathione being protective on cancer. What kind of testing would you recommend to figure out what's going on specifically in someone's stomach? So I would recommend doing a high-quality stool test and see what's going on with H. pylori. That's number one. We can also look at enzyme levels. You can also do an HCl calibration test. That's also important as well. Some people do the baking soda test. That's a little bit different. So essentially, you are the more acid you have, so you have these hydrogen ions, the more acid you have. When you take the baking soda, you form CO2 from the hydrochloric acid from the hydrogen in the HCl, and from the baking soda bicarbonate, so you form CO2. So if you take baking soda with your meal and you start getting a lot of burping, that tells me that you have a lot more CO2 coming up, and that means you have a lot of acid. If you don't have a lot of burping, that means less hydrochloric acid, less CO2, less burping. So there's that test as well. That's kind of more of a clinical test, not a lot of research on it, but it's something that clinicians can look at. So a lot of stomach acid, more burping with baking soda, less stomach acid, less burping with baking soda. Let me go to give some Facebook love out here. What do you do to eradicate H. pylori? So it depends. In my line, I have a product I specifically use called GI Clear 2 that has mastic in there. It has bismuth. It has clove. We'll also do a lot of high-dose berberines. We'll do ginger tea. We'll do silver. A lot of times it's never just H. pylori by itself. It's H. pylori plus fungus or blasto or Giardia, other infections going on. And I find if you don't fix the digestion or fix the food allergens, then you just get reinfected because you're not fixing the underlying inflammation in the system. Okay, good. What's good food timing for fixing the adrenals but staying low carb? I think having 3 meals a day is good. Part of the reason why 3 meals is good, it's hard to get enough nutrition in 2 meals. Like if you look at, hey, I need 2,500 calories a day, and you want those to be whole food, nutrient dense calories. So if you have a couple of beers and some potato chips, guess what? You got a lot of calories that are missing those nutrients. Actually, potato is actually really high in potassium though. So maybe let's do some corn chips instead, right? Not a lot of calories, not a lot of nutrients. So we have to get enough nutrients in, potassium, vitamin B, amino acids, fat. So if you do 2 meals, you need them to be really good, big salad, lots of veggies, good protein sources, maybe take some digestive support because they're just a lot bigger, right? But 3 meals, it's a lot easier to do it. And you can eat a smaller meal and you can do it. And then you can even throw in some celery juice or something like that to get extra potassium and veggies in there as well. So I like 3 meals a day. Myself, I typically do a coffee with butter and MCT and about 20 grams of collagen. And then within 2 hours later, I'll do 1 cup of celery juice. And then I'll have usually a big salad and some protein and some fat for lunch. And I'll do some kind of a steamed veggie and protein for dinner, and then usually a snack, some kind of a green apple or some berries with some coconut cream and cinnamon and maybe some high-quality 90% organic dark chocolate at bedtime. So something like that on average, and I'll kind of plug and play different things in general. You can do it with 2 meals. You just got to be more perfect, and you can't allow empty calories to come in there. Michael writes in, hey, Michael, was drinking 3 cups of coffee to battle fatigue, went cold turkey a day and a half ago, dragging pretty good. Any ideas what to do in the meantime? Well, number one, I'm fine with a couple of cups of coffee. Just keep it all in the morning, right? That way the coffee's out of your system by nighttime. Unless the coffee's really messing up your anxiety, your mood, or sleep, just get it all done between 8 and 10 and then be done with it. And then you can also do you can do a decaf and a regular coffee and just do half and half. And when you put fat in the coffee like MCT and if you can handle ghee or butter, and that alone will time release the caffeine. So it hits you way slower and way gradual. So caffeine it's like kind of like doing a shot versus sipping a glass of wine, right? Sipping a glass of wine over an hour or two, you're going to get hit way harder with that buzz when you do a shot. Just like doing a shot of espresso, you're like bouncing off the wall, right? But you do a nice coffee with some good fat in there, that time releases it, and then you throw some collagen in, it time releases it even more, so then you get this magic carpet caffeine ride that's just like that versus this up and down crash. Great question, though. Thank you for what's your opinion on organic coffee with someone who is fixing adrenals. It just depends on how well you do with the coffee. A cup or 2 is probably okay as long as you get it done right in the morning and it does not cause anxiety or mood or sleep issues afterwards. And ideally, you mix it with fat so it time releases the caffeine. And if you're sensitive, you can just do 1 cup then, or just even do a decaf. But most people who can tolerate it do really good with some fat in there and then even some collagen. Okay, excellent. Dennis writes in, I heard a chiropractor say that women need 2 hours of sleep more than men for best health and well-being. Why is that? Well, I'm not sure if that's true per se. It just depends. Like my wife right now, she's breastfeeding my 8-month-year-old. So if women have more oxytocin, you can go Google oxytocin and sleep deprivation. So women have a lot of oxytocin in their system from breastfeeding or whatever. That can actually help with sleep deprivation. So it really just depends. If a woman is in a phase where they're at their PMS time and their progesterone's dropping, progesterone is a precursor to cortisol. So if their progesterone's dropping out and they have low cortisol, that may make them less resilient to stress, and that may cause them to need more sleep. But it would really be depending upon where they're at with their hormones. Healthier women, healthier hormones I would think they'd be equally resistant or have equal needs to sleep as a man, barring nutrition and stress and exercise and kind of like workout stuff being equal. I was told that I have H. blast, probably H. pylori and blastocystis hominis and a fluke, so a worm. I was exposed to the Epstein-Barr virus. That probably explains why I'm sick as a dog in March. Yeah, it could be. Yep. If you have H. pylori and blasto, those are some serious infections. Is there a way to regulate a potentially overactive parathyroid? Specialist wants me to eat less than 800 milligrams of calcium per day, which is super challenging. Also, I got to keep an eye on my vitamin D. So I'd make sure your vitamin D is probably normal, like 50-ish is fine. I'd look at your thyroid to make sure there's not an autoimmune thyroid because, the parathyroid's basically, it's like the button on the outside of the thyroid. Imagine a thyroid gland, you have a little button here and there. That's the parathyroid. So why would the parathyroid spontaneously combust? There could be some autoimmunity from the thyroid affecting the parathyroid. I'd make sure your vitamin D, K is dialed in. And I think I would just really make sure all of the other inflammatory things are dialed in with your diet. So a really good, solid autoimmune template for sure. James writes in, Dr. J, do you prefer white rice or brown rice? What's the better choice? If I'm choosing rice, I would choose white rice just because of the hypoallergenicity. I'm not eating rice for nutrition. So the argument is brown rice has more B vitamins, right? If I'm consuming rice, it's not because of nutrition. If I want nutrients, I'm going to go consume some liver or some celery juice. I'm not going to go consume rice. If I'm consuming rice, it's primarily going to be in a sushi roll, okay? Being a sushi roll. So I want the hypoallergenicity, low allergen volume. So I would always do white rice because I'm never consuming rice for nutrients. So always trying to decrease the immune response to my food. What kind of protein limit would you suggest to someone who is trying to balance stomach acid issues? It depends. Are you saying that you have low protein tolerance and more protein causes digestive issues? If so, I would just do more smaller meals throughout the day and anywhere between a palm to a fist for your body size of protein. I mean, I'm 6'2", 215 pounds, so my hand's a lot bigger than my wife who's 100 pounds less than me, right? So the hand's a pretty good gauge of someone's size. So like for me, I'll do anywhere between 4 to 8 ounces of protein per meal. My wife may do 3 to 6 or 3 to 5. So everyone just kind of has that size thing. And of course, if you're lifting weights, that's going to be more protein for you no matter what your sex is. How can H. pylori and blasto and the fluke be healed? You have to address it. You have to knock it out, Joan. So you'd have to get with a good functional medicine doc and create a protocol to knock it out. So in my line, we use GI Clear 2 on the H. pylori, and then we would also do something like a GI Clear 4 on the blasto, or maybe like a Mimosa Pudica Para 1 on the blasto as well, something like that. But you got to set the table with the diet and the hormones and everything else. How did you get those parasites? 4 major vectors. People, pets, water, and food. People, pets, water, and food. What would you suggest for a swelling neck gland? All of a sudden, had to stop a small parasite cleanse because it made me feel terrible. Then the glands in the neck began to swell. So your lymphatic fluid is being overwhelmed because you're dumping. Think of your lymph as like the gentle stream that runs by your home. And if you throw too much garbage in that stream, it gets clogged up, right? That's your stream. The lymph is the fluid connection between your tissue and your blood. So if you're putting a whole bunch of crap into that system, it gets swelled up, and your little lymph nodes, which are going to have immune macrophages in there, are going to get swollen. So one, decrease the throwing of garbage into that. So adjust the clearing herbal program that you're on. And then add in some ginger. Add in ginger and things that will help with the lymph. You can even throw in some good burdock root tea, which will help with the lymph, and just dial in the killing phase. Great question, great question. All right. Oh, I got some Facebook love here. Hold on. What's the best time of day to take bromelain and NAC, and daily amounts each per day? NAC, 2 grams per day. That's what I'm taking right now for COVID because of glutathione. Bromelain, you could do it more. It depends what your reason for bromelain is. If you're taking it for allergies or for blood thinning effects, you could do it morning and afternoon. If you're doing it for digestion, you could do it with a meal. Do you think the glycomark and C-peptide is an important marker for blood sugar? It depends. I only run C-peptide for people that are, have beat the crap out of their pancreas, and either a type 2 diabetic that's beaten the crap out of their pancreas, or they're a type 1 diabetic and have GAD65 antibodies. I had a type 1 diagnosed patient last week because of GAD65. We ran C-peptide, and it was in the bottom 10% of the range. So it helps to know how fatigued the pancreas is. Glycomark, I forget that one. That's the other newer test that they're using for blood sugar. My markers for blood sugar are fasting insulin, fasting glucose. Fasting glucose is old school. I'll do the functional glucose tolerance. I'll do a fasting, a 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour post meal, and we'll check 3 different meals during the week. We want to be below 100 at fasting, below 120 within an hour, ideally below 140, but definitely below 120, below 100 to 120 within 2 hours, and below 100 within 3 hours. And then we can also look at A1C, which is helpful. Crystal writes in, I'm taking MP Thyroid, which of course I have to take first thing in the morning on empty stomach. I just started taking liposomal glutathione. Instructions say to take also on empty stomach. Can I take glutathione at the same time as the MP Thyroid or separate? You'd probably be okay at the same time, but I would at least separate it by 15 minutes. Just make sure the thyroid's done first thing. And anytime something's close to it, you could always put it in your mouth, absorb it for the first couple of minutes to guarantee better absorption. I take bromelain NAC to help with mucus in the sinuses and thin and help digestion. Good. So I would really work on doing a sinus flush with xylitol to really clean things out. And that's good. If you're doing that to keep the sinuses thin, that's good. Just be careful with the NAC too much because you could dry things out. But keep the sinus flushing as well. That's really helpful. And get a good high-quality air filter. I recommend the Austin Air HealthMate Plus, which is what I have over in the corner. You're welcome, Crystal. All right. Let me keep on rolling, guys. All great questions, even better answers. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Doing low carb, how do I get more oxygen to my blood? Have been feeling like I can't breathe as well as when I'm low carb. So I would need to know what your pulse ox levels are. So get a pulse oximeter level and let's see what your oxygen levels are at. But should be at least mid to upper 90s. And again, if you're, I'm guessing you're female based on your tag. So you always look at anemia. Low iron could be a big thing, but we don't even have any data yet on where your oxygen levels are at. Because those symptoms may not be indicative of oxygen. It could be inflammation that's making it feel like low oxygen. So get a window into where your oxygen levels are at, and I'd be curious to know if you're anemic at all. Kimberly writes in, will NP Thyroid first thing in the morning. Do you mean WP? Anyway, thyroid first thing in the morning, intermittent fasting. Yeah, that's fine. I don't have a problem. Taking your thyroid first thing in the morning and intermittent fasting, that's cool. Do I need to remove the vertical ridges out of my fingernails? As you get better at digesting protein and fat and your minerals, those should gradually go out. I mean, you could obviously get a mani-pedi on that and smooth them out, but if you didn't fix the problem, it'd eventually come back 3 months later. So you could definitely get it fixed, but keep an eye on it as you fix your digestion. Yeah, female oxygen at 896. So that's not bad. 96-ish is okay. So I would take a look at where your iron levels are at and where your hemoglobin and hematocrit's at to make sure it's good. All right, guys. Awesome. All right, very good. I'll be back on Monday. I'll be back with Evan first thing in the morning Monday, and I'll do a live Q&A right after Monday's podcast to answer more of y'all's questions. I'll be doing ribs tomorrow for 5 hours in the afternoon. I may come down to the office and pop on and do a video tomorrow afternoon. So if you guys like it and enjoy it, give me a share, put your comments down below, and I'll be back. Have a phenomenal weekend, guys. Happy Memorial Day. Bye.